Good afternoon, guys. I'm your host, Delta Sign, and welcome to the first episode ever of sinusoid.tv. Now, in this episode, I'm going to review the Roland JP-08 synth module, which was released late last year, 2015. And a little bit about me. I've been playing the synthesizer for about 8 years. This is the first of the No Bullshit Review series that I've started, and purpose of it is I got tired of just wasting my precious time last year listening to people in button-up shirts, that work for Sweetwater or the Roland Corporation. They're just reading off the marketing brochure, and they're not really, they may or may not be like full-time synthesizer enthusiasts. They're just a salaried employee of Roland Corporation, and they're just regurgitating the marketing brochure and owner's manual, and it gets tired after a while. So this is sort of a for us by us take on synth reviews, and the us being synthesizer enthusiasts. So without further ado, let's talk about the Jupiter line first. Now, the Jupiter line is very interesting, and it's one of my favorite synthesizer lines of all time, really. And I say the Jupiter line instead of specifically the Jupiter-08, which this module is sort of marketed as Emio, as being like a pocket reissue. And the reason why I like, starting from the Jupiter 4, the Jupiter 6 too is absolutely actually is my favorite Jupiter, and down to the Jupiter 8, and I won't even mention the Jupiter 80, but it did exist, and now we have the JP-08 synth module. Anywho, yeah, so the Jupiters just have some kind of unpredictability, some kind of magic, and I owned a Juno 60 for a while, and then I sold it, and they're pretty fantastic. The early Junos, like the JX3P, JX8P, they're pretty fantastic in their own right. They're 6-voice analog polyphonic, the old Roland, vintage, and they're pretty magical in their own way. But there's something about the Jupiters that just has that extra oomph to take you on a magical, dare I say, spiritual journey to another dimension, in my opinion. And I feel, I ended up holding on to this module because I felt that it does do that in the end, despite all of its shortcoming and Roland just half-assing the manufacturing and perhaps rushing this to market, given the grammar in the manual. I mean, it's hardly usable. I mean, it doesn't even accurately describe how to save a preset. You have to sort of do some additional tinkering yourself and go to Google and do additional diving that, for something as basic as saving a patch should be clearly communicated, and it's not. Yeah, one of the things that I'm just going to get the things that I don't like out of the way. When comparing this to the JP-08, the Jupiter 8, obviously this is DSP based, it's digital, 4 voices instead of 8 like the original. There's no chorus, no arpeggiator, no keyboard split. It sucks that companies like Roland, are whoring out the brand, like the legacy, like the old, Roland brand of yesteryear, and they want to evoke, the nostalgia of yesteryear, but oftentimes there's no substance. It's all looks, and I think in the end, after all the dust settles, it's really the sound and the substance that really remains and is a true testament of longevity, of whether or not a synthesizer proves itself, and I think that's why a lot of the Jupiters are very valuable, because they have an unmatchable, unrivaled sound quality to them, and I have a thing about a discomfort, with everything being made in China, make things as cheaply as possible, and then this is marketed as a boutique, quote unquote, product, as more than on the premium line and limited edition. And I went to a Guitar Center not too long ago, and there were 6 JP-08 boxes. I mean, there were less Yamaha refaces and Moog sub 37s than there were JP-08s, and those were just the JP-08s. There were still several JU-06s and JX-03s, and it's just doesn't, it's kind of like a half-assed effort at trying to create like a premium brand, something Apple-esque or Teenage Engineering, and I just don't. I wouldn't, recommend falling for it. And then don't get me started on the K25M keyboard, which is just a blatant price gouge for $100. It should really cost more like $30, or they should include it with it for free of charge. So without further ado, it's just getting out all the all the gripes out of the way, and I'm sure more will come up as I'm doing this video review. But let's talk about, actually, let's make some noise. I have my JP-08 module hooked up to a MIDI sequencer. So this little red thingy you see right here, that's going through MIDI in, and it's going to send it note data. One thing I will preface before starting the review is that there's every time you turn the unit on, by default, the factory preloaded sequence is just automatically activated and loaded. So if you're sequencing if you want to use your JP-08 module with an external sequencer of your choice, like an Akai MPC or Electribe, whatever, or your laptop, know that when you hit play on your external sequencer, that play signal is going to be sent to this guy. And you have to make sure, unless it's intended, unless you want to play the factory presets, that all the steps are off. And there's no way, at least that I found, to turn off all the steps permanently. Just every time you turn on and off the unit, just have them be deactivated. I feel that that should definitely be addressed, as well as some other things. It's pertaining to the manual. Oh my God, it's just atrocious to read. And so I'm gonna deactivate these steps because I don't want them to play. I mean, it's a nice sequence, but it gets old after a while, and it gets really annoying when you're playing live and you forget to turn these steps off. So that the sequencer is still going to play, but there aren't going to be any notes to play. They're all going to be deactivated. So how you get into in and out of sequencer mode? You hold down the dual and manual buttons. So now I'm out of sequencer mode. I'm on, and I'm gonna press play on my external sequencer and show you that the sequencer will still keep playing because it's receiving the play signal. So here we go. So. Yeah, it's still running through, and if I were to light them up, it would play, and that is annoying. It's very annoying. So I'm going to turn it off, turn off sequencer mode,